seem to be going live. So I'll just start the presentation. So thank you all for attending. I'm just going to play the Okay, so the focus of this talk is Black burnout, and my name is Dr. Zelda Okia. I am a life and a weight loss coach and a former forensic pathologist. And my tagline is that I tell people, I used to look inside of people to see the results that caused their death. Now I help people develop results that will give them life. I have the objectives that I wanted to put forward in this presentation is to give you a better understanding of Black burnout, and to consider the role of the chronic inflammation and the coronavirus, and then to recognize the relationship between our thoughts and physical disease, and then to learn about how we can control our thoughts so that they work for us, not against us. And this is all in preparation for the after effects of the after we finish get over this coronavirus and corona crisis. So I was going to do my poem, which I left in the other room. So I had written a poem called Black Burnout, and I just want to go and grab it. I don't remember all of it. Alrighty then. So this is Black Burnout, a poem by Dr. Zelda Okia, and it's create the whole by piecing up the parts. And this gives reference to my position as a forensic pathologist. So there will be reference to the autopsies that I performed on these unfortunate deceased individuals. So create the whole by piecing up the parts. I've stood on the sidelines too long, watching my people oppressed by the throng of haters. Violence, violence, too powerful, too strong. Young Black males autopsied on my table too long. When is it gonna stop? Mama cries too often. Gunfire, shot shells, another nail in the coffin. The time to fight is now. The time to fight was yesterday. Black burnout, Black burnout. Is there not a reason? Is there not a cause? Now is not the time for sleeping, nor is there space to pause. Stop the violence, break death of his claws. Who will stand with me? Help me sing my song. I've stood on the sidelines too long, cutting up dead bodies in the throng. I'm taking off my gloves and gowns, taking off my mask. Who will stand with me? Help me complete the task. Something must be done. Something with us starts. Create the whole by piecing up the parts. And what inspired me to write this poem was there had been several homicides in the city of Milwaukee during the month of February. And it was back to back and fairly horrific crimes that were committed, fairly horrific deaths. And they seemed to come within weeks of one another. And you barely had time to process the crime before there was another homicide. And I didn't even know who these people were, but it just shows how the collective anxiety and distress travels throughout families, through neighborhoods, and through communities. And so I was affected. These particular crimes were against African American women, and perhaps, just being an African American woman, I identified with that, and that's what made me write the poem and take on this topic. I'm even getting emotional right now, oddly enough. And I think it's probably also just related to everything that we are dealing with, just with the coronavirus. And I just want to find other people that are like minded and um, want to tackle these issues, and really find a way to start digging out. And I know this is a huge issue, and it's a lifelong generational issue and systemic racism. But as the story about the little boy throwing the sand dollars back into the ocean, I made a difference in that one, and I want to make a difference in my world. And I'm just encouraging us to make a difference, even within our families. How can we impact the next generation just with our children? So that's what inspired me to do this presentation. And I will get my thoughts and emotions in order and move forward. So, Black Burnout, I'm a physician, and I was going to a lot of the events regarding burnout in physicians. And so this was some of the definitions that I found. It's a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. It may describe the feeling of overwhelm, emotionally drained, or unable to meet the constant demands on a person. And as the stress continues, they may begin to lose interest and motivation in certain roles. And I think this is also leading up to a lot of the violence that we're seeing in our cities. So other signs of burnout: sleeping less than 5 hours, hate going to work, no motivation at home or at the job, becoming impatient, minor issues bother you. And that's one of the concerns too with this coronavirus and the stay-at-home order. How is that affecting people that have to stay in such close quarters with one another? And how is that also the anxiety and just this fight or flight? Many of us, we hear about how the brain responds to fight or flight, and how that can, if somebody can feel trapped, then they may strike out against the people that are around them. So, noticeable change in behavior: poor grooming, lack of joy, reduction in productivity, increase in tardiness and absenteeism, increase in complaints, and then errors and poor judgment. So, I'm not an expert on the coronavirus. I just had to mention it, particularly in light of how we are finding that African American populations appear to be more vulnerable and to be dying of coronavirus infections. And I wanted to just look at what is it about the coronavirus that does make certain populations more vulnerable. So the COVID-19, it was recognized in December of 2019. It's a novel coronavirus. It is related to other viruses causing the severe acute respiratory syndrome. It spreads when someone sneezes or coughs, hence the recommendation that everyone wear masks. Also, if you touch surface that has the virus and then you touch your eyes, your mouth, or your nose, then you can spread the virus that way. And it causes a marked inflammatory response in the lungs in particular, but also in the GI tract. Some people develop symptoms of diarrhea. But as it enters the lung, it triggers an immune response, and there is an excessive level of the cytokines. So the cytokines are part of the innate immunity. This is immunity before you develop antibodies. The antibodies come later. So it's the innate immunity, which is the immunity that our the cells that that are produced that attack any cell that's infected with the virus. And when those cells attack, they release proteins and chemicals into our bloodstream that actually pulls even more inflammatory cells in. So then the lung gets severely damaged and it continues, and it's this excessive inflammation that causes, if you look down here, whoops, sorry, if you look down here, there are blood vessels here, and the inflammatory cells are in the blood vessels, and then they even damage the blood vessels. So then the blood leaks out, and there's more leaking of fluid, and then they develop a pneumonia. And this is what kills people ultimately. But it's this tremendous or hyperactive immune response that many of the people that die of the coronavirus succumb to this. So I wanted to look at the chronic stress, and I'm a weight loss coach, so I do follow these the obesity, and the stress leads to cortisol and a sympathetic response, and then the hunger and the fat storage, which causes an increase in weight. And leptin is a hormone that our bodies release that tells us when we're full. And just as certain people, when they get start becoming overweight, their bodies become less sensitive to insulin, and they develop what's called that insulin resistance. In the same way, the body becomes less sensitive to leptin, so then they can eat a meal but still feel hungry after the meal, and even during the meal, which can then lead to overeating and weight gain. But so much of this can be started because of the increased amount of stress. It says chronic stress can set in motion a chain reaction of events that can end with unwanted pounds and inches. So, looking at obesity, here's just a map of the United States, and we see all the red states have over 30 to 34% obesity. These are the percent of the population, not the BMI. The BMI is BMI greater than 30 is considered obese, but this is the population. So the national adult obesity rate was 39.6, and it's higher than that now. More than 2 in 3 adults, about 70%, are considered overweight or obese. So I say if you're normal weight, you're actually in the minority now. And then these two blue states, Mississippi and West Virginia, those have obesity, which is greater than 35. It's 35% plus. And they're predicting in 20 years that a lot of the red states will become blue states. So it's a very serious issue that we don't, there, weight loss is a $1 billion business industry, but yet we're still gaining weight at alarming rates. This one shows the African American prevalence of obesity. And here, there's even more states where it's greater than 35% obesity in African American populations. So this is a significant, it's a significant issue. And I wanted to also look at obesity and mood disorder. Obesity-associated medical illnesses occur more frequently and manifest at an earlier age in individuals with a mood disorder. So that includes anxiety, depression, or bipolar. And then the rates of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome also are elevated in people that have mood disorders. And, just like we're seeing, I've gained weight with all of the stress and the lifestyle disruption that's happening with the coronavirus. There is a tendency to just stay home and want to eat because it's comfort food, and we want to comfort ourselves. So when you're dealing with a chronic stress situation, then that does drive the desire to eat foods that we enjoy, but that we pay for them later on. So obesity is a significant risk factor in and of itself for depression. So you can see how someone can get into this vicious cycle, of being overweight, feeling depressed, and then feeling depressed, which drives them to eat. And then they feel bad because they ate foods that they weren't necessarily planning to, and then that gains their weight. And somebody can easily get into that vicious cycle. So I think that's definitely a factor in what we're seeing with the obesity. And what do we have to be depressed about? Well, the death rate is twice that of between African Americans and white Caucasian populations in the U.S. is over twice, up to the age of 50. Over the age of 50, then they kind of levels out, but it's very striking. And then now with the coronavirus, this has really brought this to the forefront. And this says, though just 14% of the population of Michigan is Black, 33% of coronavirus cases and 41% of deaths were in the Black community. And then this other news article here, it says in Chicago, 23% of residents are Black, but account for 58% of the COVID deaths. In Milwaukee, that's where I live, in the Milwaukee area, Blacks are roughly 1/4 of the population, but 1/2 of the COVID-19 deaths. These, it says cases, is death. Louisiana, 7 out of 10 COVID victims are Black. And then the hot spots that they're talking about right now are cities with large non-white populations. That's New Orleans and Detroit, and majority New York City boroughs, Queens, and the Bronx. So it is hitting the African American populations much harder than the Caucasian populations. And the other thing I wanted to look at also was the homicide rate. So like I said, I'm in the Milwaukee area. So there was 146 homicides in Milwaukee in 2015. And if you look at the age, 18 to 39 is the majority. Majority are males. The majority is gunshot, and the majority are Black. And then the same thing in 2017, there were fewer deaths, fewer homicides, but same statistics, 18 to 39, age range, gunshot, 85%, Black, 84%. And then the incarceration rate. So I'm in Wisconsin. Wisconsin is number one for incarceration of African American men. So looking at the chronic stress, loss of a significant family member is a significant chronic stressor. And if you look at just the homicides and the incarceration, this is somebody's father, somebody's brother, somebody's uncle. How does that impact the family to lose that significant family member? It's a serious loss. And then these were the homicides that I was talking about. So a Milwaukee man lit his girlfriend on fire, poured gasoline on her, and she ran outside. And there were 2 small children. Her 2 small children were outside also. And she ran outside and she doused herself in the snow. And she's still alive as far as I know, but if those of you that are physicians, you know that there's the risk of infection is always there, even up to a year or so after. So this could also turn into a homicide. And then not too long after that one, we heard the story about a man who strangled and killed his girlfriend and then killed her 2 daughters, one of which was his own daughter. And he said he didn't want the daughters to grow up without their mother. So it was just after these horrific deaths back to back that I did write the the Black Burnout. I see somebody's got a hand raised. I will finish the presentation, and then I can promote you. If you want to come on, I can promote you to panelist. Well, maybe I'll see. I don't know. Is there something? Can these wait? Okay, you can also type in your question in the question box, but if you want to come on and actually speak, then you can speak. Yeah, you can put it in the chat box and we can follow up. But these are circumstances that trigger strong emotion, and when they happen so frequently, we tend to normalize. And I saw this a lot as a medical examiner. Oh, one more, you know, and we don't think this is somebody's son, this is somebody's father, this is somebody's brother, this is somebody's uncle. So I mean, I want us to just get away from this blaming and, you know, pointing fingers at others, saying, oh, this is somebody else's problem. This is someone's else's, not us. It's their problem. But this is affecting all of us, and it's going to affect us all. And this was right before, so this was at the end of February when I wrote The Black Burnout. And then a few days later, there was a homicide, suicide, multiple deaths. A man went to the Miller Molson Brewery here in Milwaukee and ended up shooting himself. But before that, he shot and killed 5 of his coworkers. So, and there was questions, was it racially motivated? And I guess it's inconclusive, but you always wonder. And that's what I mean. We can't say us and them anymore. It's all of us. We're all in this together. So I wanted to just look at this obesity again in light of the coronavirus. And if you can look at this chart here, obesity is pro-inflammatory. You see that word again there, cytokine release, inflammation. And then it's also, look at how there's this osteoarthritis. So it aggravates osteoarthritis. So joint pain and joint aches is very common in people with that are obese. Again, like I said, the type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, high blood pressure, asthma. How much are we hearing about asthma and COPD now with the coronavirus? And then when the inflammation is so bad, your body starts attacking its own tissues. So that's why now you see this rheumatoid arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune disease. And then those autoantibodies are increased. And we're also seeing that with the coronavirus. The body is attacking itself. When this inflammatory response goes haywire, it starts to affect the entire body. And then people often end up with multi-system organ failure because of the coronavirus. So unequivocal evidence indicates obesity and mood disorders are chronic, low-grade, pro-inflammatory states that result in a gradual accumulation of allostatic load. So the allostatic load is the wear and tear on the body that accumulates as individuals are exposed to repeated or chronic stress. So I want you to remember this allostatic load as we get into the blog. So Black Burnout was a blog I found because when I was looking at the physician burnout, and then I said, wow, is there an African American burnout? Because it was just this sense that there's so much anxiety, and all of these homicides are an indication that people are, and I say the word, have snapped. If people are snapping. And I looked up African American, and then I found this Black Burnout was this blog post from Tiana Clark. And this look at the date, it was January 11th of 2019. So over a year ago. And she said, this is what Black Burnout feels like. And I want to think, I found this picture of this man holding this pack. It's this load, it's a sense of a weight that people have been carrying around for so long, and now they're tired. Like Rosa Parks, my husband said, Rosa Parks, she was just tired. And she said, I'm not walking to the back of the bus. And it started a revolution. So the blog starts off, if the American dream isn't possible for upwardly mobile white people anymore, what am I even striving for? And then she said, the truth is, I don't feel like I'm allowed to be tired. And then I was just have the statistics here, white women, Black women marriage. In 2006, 67% of white women between 24 to 54 were married versus 34% of Black women. So already you can say what you will about some husbands being more helpful or less helpful, but it's still that sense of support that Black women have to carry this burden alone. And then looking at the earnings, Black women in general still make less than men. And if you compare the Black women and the white women, it's like 61 cents or less for every dollar. So that disparity continues. And then going back to the blog, the writer, she talks about how her great-grandmother, Free Love, was a single parent, raised 12 kids during the Great Depression. She cultivated a farm in her backyard and fed all of her children during the Great Depression. Everyone called her boss. She had rigid rules and her demeanor was very rigid, but people didn't mess with her. You knew where you stood with her. She loved you, but she would not hesitate to put you in your place. And the writer says her grandmother and mother are no different. She remembers her mother always working, no time to think about much else, no breaks. And the writer even talks about how she can't complain to her mother. The writer is an academic, she's a professor. And so when she feels tired, she can't complain to her mother, because I grew up poor, watching my mom live paycheck to paycheck, working 2, sometimes 3 jobs. Mom constantly worried about making rent, making pizza last, making sure the kids had what they needed. So in her mother's eyes, she's like, you got it good. I worked hard so you could go to school, so you could have a better life. So the underlying thing is quit your complaining, and unfortunately, we've taken that on, that's not good to complain. And, so this is again from the blog. She says, burnout is not a new concept. It's a new way of describing the particular anxiety of our age. We are tired and in debt, weary and worn down. And she said, being burnt out has been the steady state of Black people in the US for hundreds of years. Inherited burnout, and she describes slave ships, the sharecropping, the school to prison pipeline, just steady state of mental and physical collapse. She quotes Fannie Lou Hamer, who joined the civil rights movement after a forced sterilization by a white doctor in Mississippi. She said, all my life, I've been sick and tired. Now I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And then this sense of weight. And she says this, a weight that stalls. And think about that heavy load, that burden. I had given part of this talk a month ago, and I had given the story about, if you know the Bible, when Jesus was talking with Mary, and Mary's sister Martha came and interrupted Jesus. I think you're interrupting Jesus. And she's like, tell my sister to come and help me. And Jesus said, Martha, you're cumbered, which is like encumbered by too many things. And I looked up encumbered. It's like not having the freedom or ability to move. freely, not having that ability to move freely. And I think about the blood, of those those coronavirus sufferers, their blood isn't moving freely, and their lungs, the air isn't exchanging freely because it's encumbered. And so this is a huge and heavy weight. And then in the blog, she talks about road trips through the South, stopping at a gas station, and she would be afraid if she saw trucks with a Confederate flag. And she says, I'd hold my piss for miles. And thinking about doctors go from room to room to room. And I've heard that too. They won't go to the bathroom. They won't eat. They won't drink. And even doing an autopsy, you can't just scrub out, or surgery, you can't just scrub out and use the bathroom and come back. You have to hold it. But your body's not designed for that. And it comes out. And then she says, I clench up and freeze every time I see a cop car driving behind me. So again, that sense of weightiness. She says, I grew up in scarcity, not knowing if I were financially safe. Today, I'm afraid to decline professional opportunities, even when I don't have the bandwidth or mental capacity to take on more projects because I'm scared the extra gigs will stop coming. So still that sense of having to push yourself. With the flyer, I said, how many of you are afraid or you're concerned you won't call in sick to work because you don't want to be perceived as lazy? So whether people perceive that or not, we perceive that of ourselves, and then it causes us to push ourselves more and more. Maybe don't go to the hospital, or maybe don't go. I think about some of the COVID, even people get sick, but they're like, no, I can't afford to be sick because I got to work. I got to take care of my family. So there's this caught in this vicious cycle. So then she says, as with all chronic diseases, this is the Black burnout, it has to be managed. And she says, so how does a Black woman combat burnout? And she says, with her Black girl magic. She said, Black women have had to subsist on their mystical powers to persist. After all, burnout for Blacks is not just tiresome, but deadly. She goes on, according to the study of women's health across the nation, Black women are 7.5 years biologically older than white women. And she said, couple that with rising rates of maternal death, especially for Black academics. There still is, I guess, this perception that, these maternal deaths are occurring in the uneducated, underemployed, low income women, but they're also seeing it in women that are middle and upper class. And it's health care, it's health disparities. Serena Williams, she almost died after giving birth. And then there was another one of the judges, the TV judges, that lost her sister-in-law, her daughter-in-law, sorry, after giving birth. So it's real, and it's deep, it's heavy, it's heavy. So she said, if I succeed and push myself harder, I increase my chances of fraying at the seams on a cellular level. Not only will I age faster, get sicker faster, increase difficulty in conceiving, then giving birth, all the while hurtling faster to death with more debt than any other group in American history. And this is what she says at the cellular level. They're actually finding that the telomeres, the end of the chromosomes which control aging and other key biological functions, are literally shrinking due to excessive oxidative stress factors like everyday racism. So I think that is a burnout for white upper middle class millennials might be taxing mentally, but the consequences of being overworked and underpaid while managing microaggressions toward marginalized groups damages our body by the minute with greater intensity. So that was my Black burnout presentation there. And I just wanted to leave us with a call to action. What can I do? And I wanted to just see how many people are interested in getting together, having a call, and just I want to hear what your ideas are, share my ideas about what we can do. And I think the first thing we have to do is to believe. We have to believe that change is possible, and it starts with us. It really starts with us because, like I said, with our children are watching us. They want to see, and if they see our belief, if they see, I said, go back to the fundamentals. I'd written a blog post about getting back to the fundamentals, waking up the same time every day, washing your face every day, putting on your makeup every day. If your kids see you going about your daily activities, it calms them. It calms you, to keep your mind, again, going back to her mother, that was excessive. But when you stay so busy, you don't have time to sit and think about and complain about things. But so just going back to the fundamentals, what is the most essential thing? And living a healthier lifestyle, exercising, getting some fresh air. I know it's difficult now, obviously. We are practicing social distancing, and I just please ask people to be mindful. I know tomorrow's Easter, and I don't know, if there may be people that might make a choice to get together with family members. Think about who you may be putting at risk. Some people die from the coronavirus. Other people have no symptoms. Other people have mild symptoms. So you just don't know. And you go to visit someone and you think you don't have it and they don't have it. And then the next thing you know, somebody's coming down with it. And they might have a serious infection and they may actually die. So please think about that, and please be mindful and continue to practice the social distancing and to wear your mask. I know in my poem I said I'm taking off my mask, but I did wear a mask. Milwaukee, they made us vote on Tuesday, and I had my mask on. I can't say everybody had a mask on, but I had mine on. Okay, and back to the fundamentals. Meditation. Meditation helps you to focus your mind. I came up with the poem. I started to think about Black Burnout. I thought about this webinar. It was all taking that time in the morning. I meditate, and I wait. I listen. Prayer and meditation, they do go together. But after you pray, then meditate. Stop and listen. Listen for that still small voice, and you'll be amazed. Ideas will come. Dreams, maybe dreams that you put out of your mind for years, they may resurface. And now it's time to start looking at those dreams. It's only unrealistic because it hasn't been done before. It doesn't mean that it can't be done. You just have to bring it into reality, that burning desire and that purpose. Once you find that purpose and that dream and you go for it and you don't stop till you get to your destination. One of the analogies that I use sometimes with weight loss is if I'm on a plane going to California and we have a layover in Utah or Wyoming, I get out and say, hey, this isn't California. It's like, right, no, you didn't stay on the plane long enough. Keep going. The flight isn't over yet. So keep going until you reach that destination. So I'm just looking for people that want to reach that destination, that have a dream, that have a goal, and that have a desire to go somewhere. And how we can work together, how I can help you. That's what I want to do, because I want to see things get better. And I want people to feel like they don't have to carry their burdens alone. And one thing I mentioned here is the environment. And I'm just thinking about what can we do? If there's trash in the streets, what's to stop us from picking up the trash? And all of the boarded up houses, we as a people, we like beauty. We're drawn to beauty. And to have boarded up houses in your neighborhood, trash in the streets, all that just wears on your spirit. What's happening in the earth affects us as humans. And I also want to say that, um, we do live on the earth, and all our resources, everything that we need to survive is here. Just like how there's sunlight and water and nitrogen for trees to grow and oxygen for us to breathe, everything that we need is scattered in pieces around us, but we have to see it. Our minds have to be open to actually see it. So, what are the tools, the resources, the capital, the people, the expertise that's right there, right in front of you? And so, train people to treat you the way that you want them to treat you, how to put up boundaries with these microaggressions, these little jabs, that people make, and they often are racially motivated, but hard to pinpoint. So somebody might want to go and touch my hair. I've had people want to touch my hair. Well, some people are very sensitive to people just reaching out to touch your hair. Or they might say, "Oh, you're very well spoken." And I'm like, "Well, I'm educated, I would expect I would be well spoken. Aren't you well spoken too?" So how can you use humor? Some people will use humor. They won't get offended, or they'll find a way to check that person, to say, "Well, I'm well spoken. I grew up, probably went to school together. So why wouldn't I be well spoken? You're well spoken." So, find a way to, maybe if you are dealing with a microaggression, how can you approach it in a way so that you may educate the person, or just realize that it's ignorance and not let it bother you so much. And also expressing gratitude. Gratitude is also a very important thing that can help you to feel better, or just give you that little bit of extra boost of energy that you might have lost or might have run out. And one thing I would say too, which I might try doing this, is going to open mic night and doing some stand-up comedy. And how much does that require creativity and ingenuity and idea generation? So, what is your level of commitment? If you're interested in exploring this issue of Black burnout, or you have ideas, or you just want to do some brainstorming and masterminding, then I'm leaving my information here. You can reach me through Facebook or my website, or you can email me directly, zeldaokia@gmail.com. And take this with you as you go. Take our ideas from the sideline to the front line. And I'll read my poem one more time, because I said I've been on the sidelines too long. Watching my people oppressed by the throng of haters. Violence, violence, too powerful, too strong. Young Black males autopsied on my table too long. When is it gonna stop? Mama cries too often. Gunfire, shot shells, another nail in the coffin. The time to fight is now. The time to fight was yesterday. Black burnout, Black burnout. Is there not a reason? Is there not a cause? Now is not the time for sleeping, nor is there space to pause. Stop the violence, break death of his claws. Who will stand with me? Help me sing my song. I've stood on the sidelines too long, cutting up dead bodies in the throng. I'm taking off my gloves and gown, taking off my mask. Who will stand with me? Help me complete the task. Something must be done. Something with us starts. Create the whole by piecing up the parts. Thank you very much. Okay, I will go back to the Q&A. If anybody typed an answer in, typed a question in there, or somebody had their hand up, let me see if I can promote you to panelist so you can come on and share your question. No? Oh, okay. Hello? Oh, you're muted. Um, okay, there. Can you hear me? Cynthia?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. What was your question?
No, I was just answering your question. Both of the girls was his daughter.
Okay. Both of them were. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
but all three of the children was his.
Oh, okay.
You
Yeah.
know, that was one of my cases. So I knew her personally.
Oh,
So
okay. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
That that's all I was gonna say.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. Yeah. That one came so soon after the other one where the guy lit her on fire, and even
It
now
was
just
it
to
was
think
it
about.
was it was days apart.
Yeah.
It was like a day apart. It wasn't. And then before that, it was a 17-year-old girl who got killed. So
Yeah.
the violence here is very real. Domestic violence, all of it. The murders, it's very real.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But I enjoyed this webinar though.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And do you want to say what you'll be taking away from the webinar?
Um, for me, I think I'm just gonna push more of my girl
Black
power
girl
magic,
magic.
black girl power magic.
Okay.
Um, and just show people how to treat you.
Yeah.
Because in the line of work I'm in, I see and hear all kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of like in the some areas I go in, I sit at tables where people don't think I should sit at because of my race.
Really? Now,
So
has anybody ever said that to you, or you just
I
kind
have been the only black woman in a room full of 12 white men,
of, okay?
and they looking at me like she's uneducated. But when I open my mouth to speak in my presentation, then the tune changed.
Right, right.
So for me, it's always the first impression.
Mm-hmm.
Don't look at the outer part of somebody because you don't know you don't know
Yeah. You don't
what
know.
they are.
Yeah.
First impression to me is everything. Like you can just because you dressed a certain way, you
Mm-hmm.
can be educated.
Right, right.
So this judgmental is my thing. Stop with the judgmental, and then you got to be able to be a helping hand to somebody
Yeah. And I
because
think that, oh, I'm sorry.
no, I'm just gonna say because at any point you can be on that receiving end where you need the help.
Right, exactly. And that was what I was going to say too. Part of it for us as Black women is not being afraid to sit at the table. You know,
Right.
many times I have been in situations where I am the only Black person,
Mhm.
but I have to still speak my perspective because my perspective is different
Right.
and the other people there, and my view is worthy, you know.
Mhm.
So it's also okay, I'm gonna mute you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. But thank you, Cynthia. Thank you for your contribution. And yes, you do, you have to train people. You have to train people how to treat you because they are looking at you from their own bias. And and also goes back to us too. Just because they look a certain way, we can't assume that they think a certain way either. So it's just understanding that we're all humans, we're all on the human journey, and everybody's situation might be different, but like I said, what affects one really does affect us all. Does somebody else want to come on as a panelist or say something? Patrick, your hand is still up. Okay, does anybody, let me see, is there anything in the chat box, in the Q&A? Okay, just Catherine saying you were present. Okay, so does, one more time, does anybody want to add anything or say anything before we sign out, before we sign off? Again, please reach out to me. I put my contact information there. I would love to just spend more time with anyone here and brainstorm ideas and just share from our experiences, and then see, you know, how can we make our dreams a reality, you know, and how can we really help and serve, because I say, like, a raising tide raises all ships. A rising tide rises all ships. A rising tide raises all ships. Okay, well, thank you all for joining me live. This is the best birthday present ever. And you all take care. Have a great day. Happy Easter, and continue to practice your social distancing and to stay safe. All right, I will stop the sharing. Oh, you still see me? Okay. Okay, let me see how to. Okay. All right, I'm going to end the meeting. I think there was one other question. Oh, allostatic. Yeah, so the allostatic is wear and tear. It's wear and tear on the body caused by these assaults. So not just the physical, but the emotional and the mental assaults on the body. And my blog is at my website, www.zeldaokia.com. is where my blog is housed at this current time. Okay, now I am going to end the meeting. So thank you all for coming, and please reach out if I don't have your email or your information. And unfortunately, I could not get this Facebook Live to work, but I will figure it out. And get that done next time. So thanks again for staying on, everyone, and have a happy Easter. Bye-bye.